Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the webcast today. We trust that I'm sure everyone's staying safe and working from a remote location. Everyone's comfortable and getting things done in these times. We wanted to take this opportunity to run a webinar, of course, on looking through some of the features of some of the SolidCAD and CTC tools. Specifically for today, we're going to look at some of the tools that are related to editing and manipulating Civil 3D storm and sanitary pipe networks and a lot of their associated properties. So we're interested in getting some feedback from you as well. So we'll be taking questions or looking forward to hearing from you on the topic. So again, just by introduction, my name's Dave Hill. I'm a civil technology consultant here at SolidCAD. With me today is Brian Lewandowski from CTC Software. He is the civil product manager, looking after all the civil tools that we're developing for the Civil 3D product. So our agenda today, we're just going to quickly kind of do a introduction to SolidCAD and CTC, and then we'll move right into taking a deep dive of the features that on the features that are in the tools that we've developed to kind of quickly manipulate Civil 3D storm and sanitary pipes and structures. So we'll dive into that. So I'll skip through the panels here, hopefully fairly quickly. So this is our agenda. So for today, we're going to do a storm and sanitary design productivity tool. So we'll look at pipe designer functionality, a part swapper for moving multiple parts around, also tagging parts with other properties and custom properties, and we'll also talk about a few other things as well on the pipe design side. So that's our features. What do we do from the perspective of SolidCAD? We do a lot of training, obviously, and consulting and customizing new software development. Most of you are familiar with us. If you need anything in any of these areas, please drop us a note. We're more than happy to talk to you about any of your needs. The partner products we have, there's CTC right in the middle. We're working with them regularly every day on new functionality for Civil 3D and on the Revit side. For those of you who are in the building scope, they have products for both sets of tools. Today is our Civil 3D day, so we're going to be looking at those. SolidCAD has facilities right across Canada, right from BC out to Halifax. We do deal with all the different provinces and all their different standards. So we have offices in all those locations that can answer your questions as needed. So on the civil infrastructure sales team, there's a list in the wonderful photos to show you what we all look like there on the sales side. So from Ontario, BC, Alberta, and Quebec, that's where our sales teams reside. And from a technical team, you can see that we have quite a collection of technical expertise in Ontario, Nova Scotia, also in Quebec for those French-speaking requirements, and in BC. So we all have industry experience for quite a number of years, so we're very well versed in the Civil 3D product and the workflow for the infrastructure world. Went back one, sorry. So today we're talking about some civil tools, and we're looking at obviously embracing some of the features that CTC and SolidCAD have put together to help streamline the workflow within Civil 3D. We also have some sub-assemblies kits for custom sub-assemblies and pressure pipe catalogs and other solutions for survey side. So if you're interested in those, we're more than happy to go through that as well. So SolidCAD and CTC, all right, there's two suites. We're going to be looking in the CIM Project Suite today, specifically at the pipe network editing tools. We also have a CIM Manager Suite, which helps manage the drawing templates and layer structures and other kind of CAD management features that and techniques that need to be used. So we have some enhancements in there as well. But today's session is on the CIM Project Suite. And looking at the overview of just the project suite, we're looking at pipes today, but inside that as well, there's a lot on corridors, working with sheets, doing survey, and a lot of other features as well for manipulating different objects in Civil 3D. So we also run our Solid Assist technical support, and that's getting a lot of work these days, as you can well imagine, with everyone working from home. And that goes for, you know, any of the products that we sell, whether it's Civil 3D, AutoCAD, you know, it'll be CTC tools and SolidCAD tools associated to those. So again, we've got a fairly deep bench on the technical support side of things as well. Just another kind of record of some of our clients we work with on a regular basis. And for contact, you can contact me directly, or you can contact Brian. His information is going to be on this PowerPoint as well. So you can speak to him directly at any time, or you can speak to any of our sales teams regularly as well on any of the topics that we're discussing today. So having said that, thank you for your time for that quick introduction. I'm going to turn the presenter over to Brian, and he's going to take us through a little bit of a detailed review of the pipe tools and network tools that we have put together to manipulate Civil 3D networks. So over to you, Brian. I'm going to turn it over right now. Hopefully you can take over now.
I can. All right. Thank you, David, for the introduction, and thanks everyone as well for joining us. Hopefully, if nothing else, we can give you some distraction while you're working from home today. Hopefully some entertainment too. So Civil 3D pipe networks, I wanted to talk a little bit about those and kind of set the stage on why we've created these tools so we can understand the benefit of them. So Civil 3D pipe networks out of the box. What are the pros, the advantages of using some of this stuff? These are 3D parts. Okay, with 3D parts, it's very easy to cut different views and sections and profiles, right? They're actual real parts. We're not just drawing lines on the screen. That goes without saying, right? There's a lot of detailed properties in our pipes and structures as well, not just geometrical things like inverts and rim elevations, but all kinds of other information that have to do with hydraulic analyses, the casting name, the reference alignment for station and offset, connected pipes, you name it. There's a lot of properties. What are some of the disadvantages? Well, while they're nice 3D parts with a lot of information in them, to me, they're not really design tools. I worked in the field for over 10 years as a civil engineer, and you know, designing storm and sanitary networks, there's a certain process to it, and I don't think the pipe networks really serve that. While they help us draft faster, they're not really design tools. That's my point here. And a lot of the work we do, whether it's changing slopes or inverts of our pipes, we have to edit this stuff one at a time. So it actually becomes really clumsy. And so what we've developed is a set of tools here. And the first one I want to mention before I jump into a demo in Civil 3D is Pipe Designer. And this is probably our most popular one. And here's a little screenshot of the interface. It allows you to design by pipe runs and not just one part at a time. What I have here is a pipe run of about, looks like 5 structures and 4 pipes loaded. And I can manipulate this in what is an Excel-like interface, right? That's everyone's happy place. Nice to work in Excel. It's not in Excel per se. It's within Civil 3D, but it gives you that familiar experience. And you can do things like mass editing of slopes or inverts or sumps, things like that. You can be selecting or designing pipe runs from either a plan or a profile view. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility. And you can edit slopes and inverts holding constant values across dozens and dozens of pipes and structures at once. Like I said, one of our most popular tools. We'll spend some time with that one so you can understand really how it works. Next one is simply called Parts Swapper. As many of you know, you're changing out parts, be it pipe sizes or structure types, and you have to do this one part at a time. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just grab all those structures, switch them at once, or grab all those pipes, change the size at once, instead of one at a time? Part Swapper does that. You can select these parts in Plan or in Profile View, or you can even swap an entire network at once. And Part Swapper, in that whole CIM Project Suite that Dave was talking about, Part Swapper is actually a free tool. We always have free tools in all of our suites. So if nothing else, go and take advantage of the free tool. The other ones come with a trial, of course. Parts Tagger is another tool we have in here. And what it is, it's about managing your part properties in mass. Again, this is something you have to do one at a time. Say I'm just trying to change the reference alignment, or assigning a different grate or casting, or maybe I want to put a surface adjustment value on all my rim elevations. Most of this stuff you have to do, again, one part at a time. Why waste time on that? Parts Tagger allows you to push properties in mass to all your different parts. Now, some of those values, right, that you have them programmed into your pipe catalog, but a lot of things are project specific, right? And so we need to manage that in that way. So this works on structures and on pipes. You can see two different tabs here. I'll show you a scenario of that in Civil 3D as well. And one last tool I have to mention, I don't have a demo in Civil 3D for you, because this is one that's in development right now related to pipe networks. We've got a lot of tools in development. This is another one, but I wanted to mention it to you because it's relevant to storm and sanitary design. And what it's going to do is allow us to import and export pipe and or pressure networks to Excel. Now there's a number of things out on the market like this that kind of sort of do it. What we're trying to do is really solve it all in one tool. We've got detailed import and export formatting controls. So what data goes out, what order should the columns and the rows be set in? Okay, if you're taking that Excel sheet and going to an analysis software, right? You want some detailed control with it. Maybe you're not going to other software. Maybe you just have a simple analysis spreadsheet set up in Excel. Maybe that's how you guys design those networks. Or maybe you need to go to an entirely different design platform into MicroStation or who knows what, right? Excel is often a universal place to do that. And you can make those changes and you can bring them back on import. So this isn't necessarily to address what I was showing you with Pipe Designer, okay? Manipulating of that geometry of your pipe network in Civil 3D. That's what Pipe Designer is for. Pipe Jammer is, I need to take the data out, work with it in some other way, and then bring it back. And what we're gonna be able to do is update the actual networks when we import it back in. So here's a mock-up of the interface. One of my jobs is to design these interfaces, and so I wanted to show you guys a mock-up of what this is going to be. We're going to be able to choose different networks, okay? We're going to be able to list parts by row or column. We can be grouping by part types or not. And then down here, we're going to have a list of all the parts. We can drop them into our list to be exported. And then over here, what properties will come from those parts. A very intuitive interface where you can kind of press and drag and use these arrows to develop your export. And you're going to be able to save that export to a template so that if you have different types of exports and imports, you can simply load that template and it'll work like that. So be a really handy tool. Like I said, that one is coming soon. So let's jump into Civil 3D. And let's take a look at some of these tools in action. First one is Pipe Designer. It allows me to design pipe runs, okay? Now, what do I mean by pipe runs? Well, natively in Civil 3D, we have structures and pipes, and there's some grip editing we can do, right? I can go into my part properties. I can change inverts and slopes, and here, slopes if I'm working with pipes. I can change that information here, but it's always one at a time. I can also go to the pipe network vista, And if you're not familiar with that, with what that is, that's this view right here where you get a table view of sorts of all your structures and your pipes. And you can do some editing here, but it's still just a one-by-one thing. I don't have any kind of relationship from one part to the other. And what I want to think in terms of is hold a constant slope and perhaps an invert drop across a set of pipes and structures. Start at a given invert and then go from there, right? And then if I find that that run doesn't work because it's too close to a sanitary line, for example, how do I move that whole line up or down, right? It's a very tedious thing in Civil 3D. So with Pipe Designer, I've got this right up here. Here's the CIM Project Suite ribbon. I can launch Pipe Designer, and it prompts me in the command line, select the first connected network part, a pipe or structure. Now I can do this in Plan up here or in Profile. We'll do it in Profile today. And I picked the first part in my run, and it says select the next one. Perhaps I just want to load this pipe run. Notice it highlights everything, depending on what your selection settings are in your profile. Now, if I didn't like that, I can say, well, no, go to here. And at any point, I can select undo in the command line and back up to my previous selection. Either way, I can choose my pipe run and it'll highlight and grab every part along that path, so to speak. Okay, so let's grab that pipe run there. I'm gonna hit enter and it's gonna load Pipe Designer for me. Okay, this is kind of what we saw in the PowerPoint there. I'm going to show you it in action now. So we can grab zoom in drawing here. You can kind of position your pipe network how you want. What's kind of nice is to be able to see it in profile while manipulating it in this spreadsheet up here. Okay, so there's a number of settings and controls here. We'll get into those in a moment, but I want to get you to understand the gist of this at first. You can see a structure column here and a pipe column. Okay, this is the first structure I selected, this one right here. The next part is a pipe, that's this pipe right here. And so on and so on, next structure, next pipe. Kind of this cascading view, and you can see the text, how it kind of cascades back and forth, okay? So this view, this interface provides a lot of advantages for us because we get to think in terms of a pipe run, meaning let's hold a constant slope. Okay, let's say it's supposed to be 0.8% across all of these. I can press and drag just like I'm in Excel. I can do clipboard copying. Now, if I hit apply, you're going to see some of those pipes and structures update down here based on that edit. I push that 0.8%. Okay. Now, all the while when I'm doing this, I can turn on rule violation up here, highlight rule violation. So when I do that, it's reading the rule sets that I have applied to my structures and my pipes, and then highlighting values that violate those rules. So you can see I've got some minimum slope violated. It's telling me what the status of the rule is. Okay. If I simply set them properly, then the highlighting goes away. Okay. Now, what columns do you want to show here? I can click on show hide columns, and I've got all different types of data. Maybe you want to see the description. Maybe you want to be able to edit the description of your structures. You want to see station and offset. You notice I had minimum and maximum cover on my pipes. Okay, we can set rules for that, and if I'm violating any of that, that of course will highlight as well. There's a rules category over here. I've got the status turned on. I can turn on the rule set as well, so I know which rule set is being applied. There's that description. Again, all of this stuff is editable if it's a white cell. When it's a gray cell, that's a calculated field. So let's grab the invert of this first structure. Now watch, when I set this from 239 to 238, and I tab out of this, you're going to see all these gray cells update. Okay, just like a bunch of formulas in Excel, it behaves that same way. Now that's stored within the tool here. To actually write that to my pipe network, I click apply or OK if I'm done editing. And you can see that update there. Now it becomes really quick to edit things like, let's say, a constant sump. And let's say my invert drop is off. Should have been 0.03 across all of these. Change that, I hit apply, and I'll watch it change in the profile view. Okay, we're editing many parts at once. It would take us a lot of time to do that otherwise, not to mention how error prone it is, right? Let's simplify the columns a little bit. You'll notice some other settings up here. We've got design methods, one for slopes, one for elevations. Okay, the main difference here is what are you editing? If my method is slopes, I'm designing by slopes, meaning I can edit slopes. Watch if I click onto the elevations radio button, these columns will switch over here. Now the slope is calculated and I can edit the invert of that pipe. Okay, so editing by elevations might be some real detailed kind of invert control you want. Maybe you're tying into an existing structure, or maybe you're creating an as-built or an existing pipe network to be used for design purposes. You could type in those surveyed elevations right here. If I go back to the slopes method, you notice there's a couple sub options under here. There's match inverts, and then there's match crowns or obverts. So it depends on our design method. If we look at an example like this down here, let's go ahead and zoom in the drawing, where we have small pipes coming into larger pipes. Hydraulically, it's beneficial to not necessarily match inverts, okay? You want to have some kind of crown or obvert matching factor. So we can switch this to match obverts. And when this happens, I get a new column that shows up here, and it's an obvert matching factor. So values of 0.7 or 0.75 or 0.8 are common, at least what I've seen out there, but you can set it to what you want. And it switched and it calculated these factors based on how I had it set before. So right here, you can see the obvert factor is at a negative 0.25 because of the way this was set. Like I said, it's common to set a constant obvert matching factor. And so I can set this in this way. Make sure my drop is set constant across all of these. Now I hit apply, you're going to see that obvert matching factor applied to this area. Okay. If it was set to 1, what does 1 do? That means obverts match exactly. Those are matching there with the exception of the 0.03 drop. Okay, but like I said, hydraulically it's preferable to do something like more like that. So you guys work in all different areas. I know you have your own design standards. I just want to point out that we handle these different design methods. If I look over here, I've got structures. I can control the editing of the sump or the invert. Right now it's set to sump, meaning I have control on the sump itself. And then the invert of the structure is automatically calculated based on the slopes I set to these pipes. Now I could switch it to invert, and now the sump is calculated, and I can control in detail the invert of the structure. Similar with the pipes. Maybe I don't want to be controlling or editing by invert or seeing invert, but I want to see the obvert. I can just set that here, or I can set this to top of pipe. Okay, that's not editing the pipe network itself, that's simply pulling a different property and allowing me to design or think in terms of that value of it. Okay, so you can see how quickly I can manipulate pipe runs in Civil 3D with this tool. Push an entire pipe run down, I simply set the one invert up here that pushes to everything. I hit apply, the entire network can drop a foot just like that. Like I said, we can do copy and pasting or pressing and dragging like this to set different values, and all the while that updates that easily, that quickly. Let me show you a couple other scenarios here. I picked a downstream scenario. Okay, you're designing a sanitary line. You want to start from a tie-in structure, design your pipe run that way. Okay, I picked from right to left there. Structure 22, that's this one right here. I can zoom in plan. That's that one right there. Or if I zoom in profile, that's the one I selected right there. Okay, so you can design upstream or downstream. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What about when you're working with, it's not necessarily a constant upstream or downstream, right? It's something like this, where if we look in plan view here, I've got my main line running down the center of the road, and then I've got some laterals here. So that's what this is right here, 7A, 7, 7B, 7C. I've got that loaded in a profile view down here. It doesn't matter, you can choose whatever direction you want. So in this case, I'll grab this pipe run from here to there. You'll see it highlights it in plan view as well. I've got my first structure, okay. Now that should be sloping down at a -1, and then coming away from structure 7. Structure 7 is the deep mainline structure. I want to go up at a +1%. Okay, so I can change these in detail. And the whole thing needs to come down a bit, perhaps. So starting invert, instead of 238, we're going to go to 237. Now you notice when I was doing that, these inverts of these structures changed. Now I've already designed my main line, so I don't want that to change. Okay. So I can click undo within the interface here. And notice as I do that, it's changing the edits within Pipe Designer. So I want to get back to where I was, where I didn't change anything else. Okay, I know I'm where I'm at. Now what we want to do instead here is to come to structure 7 and tell it to lock the invert. Meaning don't change 234.17. Let the sump change as necessary, meaning from the invert of the structure to that next lowest pipe. And now as I do these edits, 237 I change this to, notice the sump will slide but my invert isn't going to change. I can set those same invert drops. Okay. Now if I hit apply to this, you're going to see this change. You won't see the invert of the main structure change, but you'll see the rest of the lateral pipe run change. I'll hit apply here. Okay. So that moves. I've got that sloping the way I want. Okay. So a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different ways you can work with Pipe Designer. It handles just about all of them. We've got a few other improvements coming down the road, ways to automatically calculate or interpolate slopes, those kinds of things. Those will be added in here as well. You notice some of the right-click functionality I had here, locking the sump, locking the invert. I've got zoom options in here, zoom to any profile or plan view. Okay, if you don't like the column order here, you can cut and paste columns, move them around whatever order you want within their category. This is structures, this is pipes, and then this is rule sets. And then of course you can change what columns are showing. And these are all user preferences that are saved. So when you load Pipe Designer again, it remembers how you had it set. All right, so that's Pipe Designer. Like I said, one of our most popular tools. I'm going to close out of this. And let's take a look at another tool. You guys can probably hear that sound where I am there, sounding the test tornado siren. I do it every first Wednesday of the month, starting in the spring. So the next tool is Part Swapper here. That sound might come and go a bit, so I'll just pause when that comes and goes. Part swapper is about changing the different parts in our design. This is set as a manhole. It needs to be a structure, a curb inlet. Normally I'd have to pick this one part, swap it, okay, and move on to the next one. And I can only do that in plan view. Like what if these pipe sizes need to change? Okay, there is no swap part in profile view. And maybe I only realize that in profile view because that's where I've got my labels, and maybe I don't label that in plan, okay? Becomes really clumsy to edit and manipulate your parts in this way. And so what Part Swapper allows us to do is pick any number of parts at once in plan or profile. Let's launch Part Swapper. And as an example, let's grab all of these pipes up here. They're all 1,000 millimeter pipes. And then we're also going to grab these structures down here. You do window selecting, you can pick one at a time. You can even do like a select similar ahead of time and then launch the tool. And then I'll launch Part Swapper. And it's a pretty simple interface. Right at the top here, I've got a selection category. I've got by selection, and I can come back out here. I can select more parts if I wish. Or I could even do entire network, and in that case, I'd be able to choose which network to swap out all the pipes or all the structures in at once. We're going to do a by selection method, and then down here you'll see the parts I have to swap. 3 structures, 4 pipes. Got my parts list. It's going to be storm sewer, and then what's my replacement structure? I want to put it in a catch basin. And for my replacement pipe, I'm going to go to a 1,500 millimeter concrete pipe. Okay, so those are all 1,000. These are all manholes down here. I'm going to hit OK to this, and you'll see all these pipes and these structures change at once. Okay, curb inlets down here. The symbol size is a little big, but you get the idea. And then all those pipe sizes change, right? Okay, simple little things like this, working with pipe networks, really clumsy, really tedious. That's what we're trying to solve with these tools. So that's Part Swapper. Like I mentioned, it's a free tool. So you get that and some of these other free tools, the light green buttons. They come free with the CIM Project Suite, and then the other ones with a paid trial, like I said. Let's take a look at the last tool. This one's called Parts Tagger. And this has to do with all the, call it the metadata or the properties inside of our parts. We use this stuff to do things like generate manhole or inlet schedules like this over here. We do it to populate our labels. We do it, or we care about these values because they serve our design, right? It's not just to manipulate the geometry of it, although that's the most important part, but right, it's also some of these other fields that we might be using here, like assigning a casting or a grate value, okay? All this stuff, again, is one at a time. You'd have to change all the stuff one at a time. Now, Pipe Designer serves a purpose where we can edit most of the geometrical properties, and we actually provide some overlap, like we can change structure, number, and description, and those kinds of things in Pipe Designer. Parts Tagger really is about managing all the rest of this data within here that we use to label and table or export our information or generate reports on it or whatever it is, okay? And again, it's one at a time. So Parts Tagger, I can grab, say, let's do a select similar and grab all these structures at once, these curb inlets. And let's grab a few pipes while we're at it. I'll launch Parts Tagger right up here. And again, another fairly simple interface. I got some selection options. I could clear that selection out. I could come back here and grab new a new selection set or additional parts maybe that I forgot, I could just simply add all the parts from a given network, or in the drawing, I mean, or select by a network right here. And then down here, I've got two tabs, a structures tab and a pipes tab. And it says I've selected 7 structures and 16 pipes. Okay, now I can push these values all at once to all these structures and pipes. And what we've listed, or what we've built into the tool here, are all these types of values that tend to change or typically change from one project to the next, or even within a project as you're moving along. So there was that grade field, right? I can push that value all out at once. Maybe the surface adjustment value needs to change. I used to do a lot of design where we drop the the rim elevation a 1/10 from finish grade. I can control the sump depth here. So again, a little overlap with Pipe Designer, depending on where we're at with things. But some of that's intentional. And then the reference surface, let's change the reference alignment. And we could also, maybe you're pushing out notes that you want to show up in labels to note, that's an existing structure or whatever it is, you could push that stuff to description fields. Now in the pipes tab, pipes are a bit simpler, so there's not as much we're concerned about, but like say the Manning's coefficient, we need to push that out so that when I export this, I have all those proper values assigned for my analyses. And of course the description field as well. So I've got those chosen. Okay, you notice there's a drop down here that'll actually remember selections you made in the past in this drawing, and then they'll become available. So different grade values or surface adjustment values, it'll remember that stuff. As I hit OK here, you're going to see, of course, I've got just a Civil 3D standard native table built here, just so you can see the values update. We'll see station and offset, we'll see the grade values update, but we can work with any of these things, right? All these different values here. So I'll hit OK. There's those grade values, the station offsets, okay, everything updates at once for us. Again, normally we would have to go in one part at a time into structural properties, change the stuff. You have a little bit of it that I'd mentioned, a little bit of functionality in the pipe network Vista, but a lot of those fields don't even show up in there. So it's about managing that metadata across all of your parts, because that's a big reason why we use pipe networks. It's not just so it automates things like section views and profile views, and inserts our symbology and all that for us, right? This is way easier to draw out than if we just drew polylines, for example. But the information inside those is important too. I don't want to have to type out this table over here, okay? But we need quick and easy ways to manage that data. So that's all I wanted to show you guys with the pipe network tool. So I believe we're going to move on to a Q&A session. So please type those in, and Dave will read those off as they show up, and then we'll address those. If there's anything kind of too complex, we'll reach out to you guys after the fact, or if it's maybe not right to discuss in the webinar, we'll connect with you after the webcast. So type those into the chat window in the GoToWebinar system, and we'll address those now, or you can always reach out to us after the fact.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, feel free if anyone has any questions. There's the chat window if you want everyone to see it, or you can just send it to the question window there as well, and we can reply to those right now online. Or as Brian said, if we wanted to, get back to you on something that may be a little more detailed, then we can do that at a later date. So, is there any questions? Anybody have any questions or comments, ideas, anything they wanted to address while we're here? Oh, okay, so we've got a question for us here, Brian, on how well the tools work with, shall we say, custom catalogs or other pipe catalogs that you created? So.
Right, good question, because most all of us are customizing our catalogs in some way or another? And the answer is we haven't run into any problems with it whatsoever. However, whatever geometry, whatever shape you're making those parts, a lot of that stuff is defined in those parts. Now, there's one exception to it, the parts tagger. If you made a custom field in there for some property that isn't normally in there, okay, parts tagger isn't pulling those properties, so it wouldn't recognize that. So if that's what you're referring to, that is one exception. But as far as like manipulating the inverts and slopes and all those kinds of geometrical properties, there really isn't a problem working with your custom catalogs.
Excellent. Another question is, can we take the parts tagger information, can you export that out to an Excel spreadsheet or interface?
Not yet. That's what our pipe jammer tool right here is going to do, right? So parts tagger is about managing that data when you're in Civil 3D, and then pipe jammer is going to be a way to export that and have really a lot of control. I know there's export options in Civil 3D right now, but they're all kind of limited in different ways. So pipe jammer is going to address that. Obviously, there's some overlap. You could push your stuff out with Excel and then manipulate the values there if that's what you're preferring, and then sync it back to your network. Or if there's no reason to go to Excel, you could use parts tagger and just manipulate it there. But you'll see that functionality with pipe jammer.
There's another question on merging or splitting multiple pipe networks. I know that functionality is in Civil 3D to split, a network into two, if you will. Do you have the mechanism, or are we going to have the mechanism to do it into multiple networks? I see on your screen there we have split network and merge network up on the ribbon, right? So
yep, those are there natively. So I guess I'm assuming the question is, will these tools work across multiple networks? And for the most part, no. And there's a reason for that. If we look at Pipe Designer, where we're designing the pipe runs, you wouldn't have that stuff necessarily in a separate network. Perhaps there's reasons if it's, say, like an existing structure that you're tying into, but if it's existing, you're not really changing that one, right? I know people have different workflows there. So with Pipe Designer, no, because we can't read and edit that stuff as though it's, if it's separate networks. The parts swapper, you can choose multiple networks, and parts tagger, off the top of my head, I believe we can grab multiple networks there as well. Yeah.
Okay. Also have a question on looking for a tool for projecting pipe crossings from one alignment to another alignment in profile view. So you have a project pipe crossing from an alignment in the boulevard to, say, a road center line profile view.
Right. So Dave, are we talking about projecting that crossing in
Correct.
the profile view? Yeah. So one of the other tools that we've got coming out is a really robust, I think, and this is where it's going to address that. I'm not sure exactly what you want to show. Maybe we can follow up with you after the fact. But we're like I said, a robust clash detection tool where it's going to search for clashes, not just between pipe and pressure networks, but anything else in your drawing, within reason, and then flag those and label those and table those, and you can do all kinds of things with them. And if it's labeling them, for example, that kind of stuff like a focal point that can project to profile views. I guess that's as much as I can understand. I guess I'd have to understand the workflow a little better there. But Dave, do you have any other comments on that one?
Well, I think that's right on the money. Like we're developing that tool, which will take, for example, the image you have on the screen. If we had a pipe crossing multiple alignments, along a roadway or whatever, and you wanted to project that crossing into, the profile view, such that you can kind of see it in its entirety, right?
Right.
In the profile. So that's kind of where we're coming from that. So it's kind of a combination of, as you said, not just pipe networks, but it's utilities and, anything that might be affected.
Yeah. Feeder lines,
Effectively
corridors.
showed in there. So
Yeah.
so that's kind of the plans, and I don't want to put a time frame on that, but it's in the works. So hopefully that answers that one. Is there any other questions on to move forward on? We've got a few good ones there. Contact us. How do you get pricing? Contact Dave Hill, or I'll move you over to our sales team. We have a couple of dedicated sales reps for some of these tools, so I can get you some numbers on that as well, depending on what you need.
And moving forward, you guys should know we've got detailed videos on this stuff on our website, so you can go there and check out, get more information on it. And then what we're prepared to do, Dave and I and the whole team at SolidCAD, is, if you've got other folks on your teams you want to see this, we can set up a custom demonstration where we can have detailed conversation about how these things might work on your projects, in your workflows. We understand that, introducing new tools like this changes how you work. And so, we want to provide you as much information as possible to help you do that. So demonstrations like that, reach out to Dave and his team as well.
That's correct. Thanks, Brian, for that. So I don't see any more questions popping up. So with that, we will kind of sign off on the demonstration, the presentation for today. And like we said earlier, if you have any questions or require anything further, please reach out. We're here to help. We can, again, point you to or just go right to the site. We can provide you with a link to do the trials as well. So feel free to reach out to us for that. We can get the trials to you in a few minutes, or go to the website and download them directly. So thank you very much for attending. And this session, again, has been recorded, so it'll be up on our website again if you care to review this at your convenience. So thank you very much, and everyone have a great day, and stay safe.